Krishna Hare Paramacharya Ostritella Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Savaya Chalanala Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahashila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Ramse Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Govinda Sayam Kun Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Ki Jai. Charan Ki Jai. Navadiktam Ki Jai. Jagat Swami Ki Jai. Nimai Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to Shri Guru Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. Okay. Om Laganat Vinadasya Vinanjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Minikam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'm very happy to be here with all the assembled devotees. And I think I was asked to speak with questions and answers, or Istagosti, or what is the topic for tonight?
Well,
You pick the topic and I can speak about it.
can I?
Or questions and answers, or whatever.
It would be nice to hear a little bit about the importance of taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master.
All right. The importance of taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. First of all, let's define what a bona fide spiritual master is before you understand what it means to take shelter. So there's several different characteristics which I think you're all aware of, such as coming down in disciplic succession. Let's talk about another topic first, epistemology, before we start talking about that. That's a fancy word for all of you, for some of you. Epistemology means how do we know what we know? And it's a very interesting subject matter. It's a subject matter of studying the science of knowledge. And generally, we know, or we think we know what we know, because we perceive things directly with our senses, or we've heard from others whom we consider to be authorities. So these are actually pretty much faulty methods, because our senses are imperfect, right? We see things sometimes that are not there, and sometimes we don't see things that are there. And most of the authorities that we accept, whether they're parental authorities, governmental authorities, really make mistakes. Sometimes they cheat, and they're illusioned. So we're sort of caught in a dilemma that we really can't know something for sure. Like I ask all of you, besides the Krishna conscious paradigm, what do you know for sure? I mean, it's very hard to figure out what you know for sure. You could say, you know, for sure, I'm sitting here in this room, right? How do you know that for sure? Could be a dream. And then someone could shake you and you wake up. I mean, I have so many dreams, and I dream that I'm somewhere, and then I wake up and I'm not there. Has anyone ever dreamt at night? Yeah. So how do you know this isn't a dream? Or how do you know you're not plugged into some supercomputer somewhere like the Matrix? And you haven't taken the right pill, you know, to get out of the illusion. How do you know that for sure? Can you say that for sure? No. So really, what can you say for sure? I mean, we don't want to bring you to the point, like in that Beatles songs, nothing is real, strawberry fields forever. But really, if you think about it, you know, your senses of perception are imperfect, including the mind. You know, the six senses, including the mind. They deceive you in many cases. So you really can't say for sure what's real and what's not real, unless you have a connection with some person who is, let's say, speaking from the absolute platform, or with perfect senses, or whatever. And that person, of course, is G-O-D, God. Because the only perfect person I know in the sense that someone who knows everything, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, all these big O things, you know, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, all good, all the all stuff, you know. That's God. So, the Vedic literatures teach us what? Dharma tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The only way you can understand Dharma, Dharma means really the inherent quality of the thing, or the reality of the thing. The only way you can understand something in reality is to have some absolute, perfect person who's given you that knowledge. Okay, so that's what we call epistemology, the study of knowledge. How do you know what you know? So, you have God, but most of us don't have his email address. God@gmail.com. You try it. I don't think it'll work. You get someone else. Get something impossible. And actually, there's many people who come who say they're God. Especially from India. I remember in the 1960s. Prabhupada would say that every week another God is coming from India. Because we had all these gods. I mean, there was one god who was 16 or 17 years old, a boy. And he came from India, he established a very big society around himself. I'm not going to say what his name was. But then God had some spiritual trouble. He fell down with his secretaries. God ran away with his secretary. So then his mother went to court in India and declared that son is not God, but my other son is God. It took out a whole court case, you know, to determine which son was God. It's nice having a son who's God, isn't it? You don't have to work. So, and there were other gods. Some gods came from India with big furry hair on their heads. Other gods, you know, just said that they had big long beards, and they said, I'm God, you're God, we're all God. And so, you know, which God is the real God? So, first of all, we have to determine which God is the real God, and then who can represent him. So the real God has several different qualities. First of all, he's called Bhagavan because he has all the attractive qualities, like he's all beautiful, he's all intelligent, he's all famous, he's all strong, and these are some of the qualities of God. Now you look at all these other incarnations who came from India, for example, or there was even one who came from Korea. I'm not going to mention his name. They were not beautiful or attractive or handsome. They were kind of ugly. So first strike, they're out. They lost it on the first vote, you know. So you don't even have to examine whether they're all intelligent or all strong or whatever. They're just not God. It's obvious. So, but then you take a look at Krishna, and you say, well, he has all these different qualities. So that's the first point. And then another point is mentioned in the Gita, where Arjuna is saying that I can understand your God because all the great sages have also said that you're God. You know, great personalities. So there's different evidence like that. And so let's say you do your whole examination, come to the conclusion that Krishna is God. So all right, so because we don't have direct contact with Krishna right now, at least we can't perceive that direct contact. How do we understand what he wants from us? You know, he's saying in the Gita, Krishna says in the Gita, Sarvadhamam Parityajya Mamikam Sharanam Braja, which is a real generic, general statement, which means surrender unto me, don't worry. Okay, well, what does that mean? Surrender to Krishna. So therefore you need someone who represents him to be able to ascertain what Krishna wants you to do. And that person is called a guru. How do you understand who actually represents Krishna? There's several different objective standards. One objective standard is disciplic succession, as Krishna himself states in the 4th chapter of the Gita. Evam parampara praptamimam rajasya vidhu. In other words, he must come down in an unbroken chain of the spiritual masters from Krishna himself. And there's 4 basic disciplic successions. They come down from Krishna. The first one is the one we're in, which is called the Brahma disciplic succession. And then there's the Rudra disciplic succession, Kumara disciplic succession. And surprisingly, one of the disciplic successions is headed up by a lady. So Krishna was not a chauvinist. Now there's some discussion in ISKCON, can ladies be gurus? Isn't it? Heard about that discussion? But actually, one of the main charyas and one of the main disciplic successions is a lady. Her name is Lakshmi. She means wealth, too. So, anyway, you have these 4 disciplic successions, and they've been extant. In other words, they're present, passing down spiritual knowledge since time immemorial. And so if someone is a bona fide member of a disciplic succession, follows strictly, doesn't invent anything, serves his preceptor, guru, then that person can give spiritual knowledge, and that person can be accepted as a guru. Then there's different types of gurus too. And it's not only the guru you take initiation from, that's called Diksha Guru, there's Shiksha Guru, Varma Pradashika Guru. It means anybody who gives you some guidance can be considered a guru. Even someone who gives you some guidance in material things, that's a material guru, like someone who teaches you how to play the violin, for example. That's guru. Or teach you how to fight. He's my martial arts guru. You can say that too. But here we're talking about spiritual gurus. So it's necessary to hear from someone who is connected with Krishna. And what does that guru do? I mean, what is his function? Like, most people take the guru as like a rock and roll star. Like people took the Beatles in the 1960s. You heard about the Beatles? People know. Anyway, the Beatles were doing their concert, whatever, and people were screaming, "Oh, what, Ringo? Oh, George." Isn't it? "Oh, Ringo." Like that, because he's the drummer. So, most people take a guru like that as something like a rock and roll, fancy version, a spiritual version of a rock and roll star. But actually, the guru's function is to engage his shishya, that means student, according to the shishya's psycho-physical nature. That comes out, that's very interesting. Because it's not just philosophy he gives. Yeah, he gives the philosophy. What is the philosophy basically? You're not the body, you're undergoing reincarnation, you're part and parcel of Krishna. The purpose of everything is to get out of the material world, go back to Godhead, chant Hare Krishna, and you'll be happy. Eat prasadam and you'll be free. Not too much prasadam. If you eat too much, you'll be entangled. If you eat too little, you get sick. And eat the right amount of prasadam, you go back to Godhead. Prabhupada said many people have fallen down in the name of Mahaprasadam. It means they've eaten too much. Like Achahara, you're eating too much. So, yes, that's the basic philosophy. We're the soul within the body, and we're undergoing reincarnation, and karma is there, and the material world was created by Krishna. Even the 5 truths mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, the tattvas. And so, but beyond that, we need a personal relationship with a guide. As a spirit guide is a new word that people use nowadays. A spirit guide. Nowadays, when people say spirit guide, that means someone who doesn't have a body, right? You ever heard that term before? So, I have a spirit guide. He comes to me in the middle of the night. Or I have another one is angels. That people really get into angels nowadays. You heard about that? Oh, I'm protected by angels. With wings. Maybe they've been smoking too much. But, you start to see angels. I have the names of psychiatrists you can see. So, anyway, the spirit guide means a spiritual guide, but who practically tells you how to work in this world. 2 things he tells you how to do. One is called the sadhana. Sadhana means your practice, because you got to practice being a devotee in the beginning. Because our natural inclination, due to habit, is to not be devotees. We have habits. addictions, habits. And so naturally, we don't want to, for example, we don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember that was one of the first, hardest things I ever encountered in the Krishna consciousness movement. Before I joined the movement, this was 1969, before any of you were born. I came to the temple, and they said, basically they told me I was going to hell if I didn't become a devotee. Yeah, they had literally said that. And they said, Kali Yuga is coming. You're going to be short and living underground and eating human flesh. It hasn't happened yet. So, and they said, your next life will be a dog. I said, they said, you better join right now and get rid of that hair. There's a lot of hair, like that. They get rid of the hair. Get rid of the hair, and guess what? I said, where's the door? And where's the way out of the temple? That was in 1969. So it took 2 more years until I met Prabhupada, until I actually, cut my hair off. So that was the hardest part. So anyway, so the hair and the waking up early and the wearing the bed sheets, the dhotis. Because in those days, in the early days of the movement, we didn't have dhotis, real dhotis, or kurtas. We just went to the store where you sold bed sheets, you know what a bed sheet is, and wrapped the bed sheets around ourselves. And that was our dhotis. And we used regular Western shirts for shirts. I mean, we were happy too. Didn't hurt us. So basically, the guru, his business is to give certain austerities. And austerity means things that are good for your spiritual life that you ordinarily wouldn't want to do due to your bad past conditioning. Like waking up early. I mean, I was accustomed to waking up at like 10 o'clock in the morning. That was normal. I'm sure that people here do the same thing. Not you all, but people in Copenhagen, right? Nightlife. The night is still young at 2 o'clock in the morning. Don't people ever say that? The night is still young. It's time for fun, So because Prabhupada gave those instructions, so I didn't accept that until I met Prabhupada. Because these devotees, actually all the devotees I had met before were very new devotees. They're just in the movement 1 or 2 years. I mean, that was the way the movement was. If you were in the movement 3 years, you were a senior devotee, ready to take sannyas. We had devotees 3 or 4 years in the movement take sannyas. It was pretty wild. When you had 21-year-old, 22-year-old devotees taking sannyas who were just in the movement 3 years, and they thought they'd become God by taking sannyas, because they could eat all the Mahaprasadam. So, when you're 22 years old, you definitely think about eating Mahaprasadam a lot. So that's like a brahmachari's dream come true. A young brahmachari's dream come true. So what happened? I took sannyas at 28, which was kind of early too. So what happened is that I really didn't want to surrender, change anything, until I met my guru. And the reason I accepted Prabhupada was that Prabhupada was a pure devotee. But you may say, how did I know that? Because you could see in Prabhupada's countenance he was 100% dedicated to pleasing Krishna, and he had no false ego. In other words, he didn't preach to me heavy that I was going to hell. Prabhupada was just extremely loving and compassionate and wanted the best. He was the first person I met in my life